Yeah. Good evening. Prayers will be taken by the Reverend Lisa Barnett. We're very pleased to see her back. I gather it's still light duties, but great to see you here.
Thank you very much. Well, at the memorial service last weekend, we heard Charlie Kirk's brave widow, Erica, saying that she forgave his killer. And then immediately afterwards, we heard Donald Trump saying that he hates his enemies. It struck me as rather a stark juxtaposition. So as we gather representing different political groups, different views of residents across Horsham, I thought I'd offer the prayer that's been linked to St. Francis of Assisi. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Amen.
Thank you, Lisa. Sit down now. Right. Couple of agnostics just coming into the room. Okay, I have a few housekeeping announcements. Please note the fire exits there and there. Please make sure your mobile phones and other devices are switched to silent. The meeting is being live streamed. Please switch your microphone on when addressing the council and off when you finish speaking. In relation to all points of order, members will need to indicate first the rule and the second the way in which it has been broken, as is required by the Constitution. This will enable me to rule accordingly. And can I please remind members to talk to the point and cabinet members to ensure their announcements are just that. Thank you. Right, apologies for absence. I have Councillors Warwick Halliwell, Richard Landhu, Cheryl Sweeney, Philip Durkis, Emma Beard, Ruth Fletcher, James Brooks, Paul Clark and David Skip. Are there any? Sorry? Okay, thank you. Any more? No, okay. On pages to 20 of the minutes of the previous meeting, I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of July be approved as a correct record. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Does anyone wish to comment on the accuracy of the minutes? No. I agree that I may sign the minutes as a correct record. Thank you. Does any member have any interest to declare in respect of any item on tonight's agenda? Good. Sorry.
I'm a county councillor, so I'm a double councillor.
Okay. I presume there's another county councillor down the other end with the same declaration. Okay. Thank you. Announcements. I have a few announcements. First of all, as I think you will all have seen anyhow, but I have to note the passing of Peter de Butt and Peter Burgess, former members of this council. I was a member at the same time as Peter de Butt from 1999 to 2003 when he lost his seat. He was a good ward member. He was very active in his ward. He continued to be active in his ward in all sorts of roles subsequent to him being a councillor. And I met him last year at the presentation of awards to commemorate this council's 50th anniversary, and he was still active then. So it's a loss. And I believe Councillor Noel, you wish to say a few words about Councillor Peter Burgess.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I do. Peter Burgess, 1941 to 2025. Peter sadly passed away on the 4th of August this year. Peter had an illustrious 32-year career serving in the Royal Navy, flying Buccaneers on carriers and helicopters in the Antarctic. He was a Sea Hawk display pilot and a VIP transport captain. He had the opportunity to fly passengers such as Margaret Thatcher and John Major. He then worked for commercial airlines from Gatwick and was later employed as a training pilot and examiner at Farnborough. Peter and his wife Karen moved to Horsham with their family in 1992. Peter became a parish councillor in 1996, serving 4 years as chairman of North Horsham Parish Council. He then became a district councillor in 2011 and remained on HDC representing Holbrook West until 2023. Peter served as chairman of the council in 2018 and was cabinet member for Horsham Town in 2019. He was the Armed Forces champion for Horsham District Council, and Peter took his role very seriously in ensuring local members of the military and veterans were well looked after. Peter's local interests included hospital and education provision, a better bus service for Holbrook, and improving local facilities, especially for the young, including campaigning for youth-centred provision, as well as caring for older residents. He always felt HDC needed to serve all aspects of our lives. Our sincere condolences go to Karen, his wife, who served on this council from 2015 to 2023, and to their 2 sons and larger family. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noel. We've also received advice that Councillor Richard Lanahoe is seriously ill at the moment. He's hospitalised, so he won't be attending council meetings for the foreseeable future, and we wish him well. And I will be writing a letter on behalf of the entire council to his wife to wish him well. Thank you. Democratic Services have prepared a list of the things that I've been doing since the last council meeting. I'm not going to big myself up by reading them out. If you want to find out what I've been doing, I have got a Facebook page, HDC Chairman, and you can see some lovely pictures on that. Thank you. Leaders' announcements.
None at this time, Chairman. Thank you.
Any Cabinet member announcements? Yes.
I'd just like to announce all members on, sorry. Just like to announce to all members that on Saturday of this week, 27th, there will be the annual jobs fair taking place at the Drill Hall from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. There are about 32 companies and organisations that have so far signed up to take stalls there. So if you know anybody at all who would be in the market for a job, please encourage them to come along on Saturday. Please come along yourselves if you wish to see which organisations are represented, and it will be opened at 10 o'clock by John Milne MP. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other? Yes, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry.
Horsham District Council has noted the Secretary of State's decision to grant consent for Gatwick Airport's Northern Runway project, announced on Sunday evening. The Council has consistently engaged with Gatwick Airport on its expansion proposals, including responding to consultations in 2021 and 2022, as well as participating in technical topic working groups, and also engaging in all stages of the formal examination by the Planning Inspectorate as one of the joint local authorities. The Council recognises that the airport is a highly valued regional economic asset and has consistently sought to provide Gatwick with feedback on their proposals, as well as insight into important local context. However, concerns about the environmental impact that expansion will have on Horsham District were not addressed prior to the submission and were not allayed as the examination of the Northern Runway project progressed. We have objected to any further expansion at Gatwick on the basis that the scale of investment and the environmental mitigation put forward by the airport has been insufficient to make the impacts of expansion on Horsham District acceptable. We will be in a position to provide further comment once we have thoroughly reviewed the details of the decision letter and the order itself. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other announcements? No. There's no announcements from the Chief Executive. There are no questions from members of the public. So we will move on to the petition. This is the first petition presented under the new petition scheme, so I'll outline how it's going to be dealt with. Councillor Belinda Waters will present the petition on behalf of the petition organiser. She will have a maximum of 5 minutes. Councillor Martin Boffey, in the absence of the relevant cabinet member, will then be given a maximum of 5 minutes to respond. I will then open the debate. Debate will last for a maximum of 30 minutes, with members wishing to speak being allowed to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Only at the conclusion of the debate, and not before then, will I ask for a member to move a motion as tabled. I will not be accepting alternative motions given this debate and decision is governed by the petition scheme. You will note from the report there are 4 possible motions which may be moved. The first is to ask the Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure to reconsider the changes to the bishopric that are subject to the petition. 2, to ask the Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure to take account of all comments raised during the debate when formulating final scheme proposals for the bishopric. Or C, to take no further action, or to D, to take another form of action. If a motion is not carried, it will be open to members to put forward one of the remaining options to ensure that this matter is disposed of appropriately. I will now hand over to Councillor Belinda Waters to present the petition.
I'm presenting this e-petition on behalf of the e-petition organiser, having been requested to do so as their local ward member. The petition relates to the Council's public realm scheme for Horsham Town, in particular the proposed changes affecting the bishopric area of the town. The petition was started on the 22nd of July 2025 and to date has attracted 1,754 signatures. The fact that this petition has elicited more than twice the responses to Horsham's general survey clearly shows the strength of feeling in regard to this single issue. The petition is entitled Save the Stream, Rocks and Birch Trees in the Bishopric and reads as follows. We, the undersigned, petition the Council to reconsider their decision to remove the artificial stream, rocks and birch trees from the bishopric. This area is a little oasis in the concrete jungle that is Horsham. Judging by the reaction on next door to its proposed removal, it appears to be a very popular spot, and its removal would have a detrimental effect on the atmosphere in this part of Horsham. It breaks up the noise from the road nearby. It is a haven for birds and provides cool shelter to people in hot weather. There is already ample space for outdoor eating, and we need all the green spaces we can get. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Chairman. As you referred to earlier, I'm responding to this petition on behalf of Councillor Fletcher, the Cabinet Member, who can't be with us this evening. She's really fairly unwell at the moment, although I think it'll only be a short-term thing, and we all look forward to getting her back very soon. Thank you, Belinda, for presenting the petition on behalf of Mr Whedon, a member of your ward. And I'd also like to thank Mr Whedon for putting this petition forward. It's very important that we are open to hearing from our residents who have concerns, especially when they receive a large amount of support, such as this one has. I'm pleased that I think we always had the ability to have petitions, but I'm pleased our newly updated constitution has this facility in it, and we'll see how the process works this evening. Turning to the petition itself, there are a couple of points in there that I would slightly object to, and I think and sometimes I might be tempted to say I don't accept the premise of the question, but perhaps I'll elaborate on why that is. I am of the view that Horsham is not a concrete jungle at the present time. I happen to think it's a very beautiful town with many beautiful buildings in it, including a Grade 2 listed building in the bishopric itself, and many lovely green spaces around the town, such as we have an award-winning park, a nature reserve, a beautiful cricket ground. The list goes on. I would also sort of put forward the contention that the area that we are talking about at the moment, whilst referred to in the petition as needing all the green spaces we can get, it is not a green space. There are some trees there which the proposals would actually retain. I think there's a certain amount of confusion in the way that this is put out as well, in that it refers to, say, the birch trees, which indeed are in the central square rather than in the bishopric itself. But I think there's a potential misapprehension in the public sphere that, from reading this, that the proposals suggest taking out all the trees, and that is not the case. The trees in the bishopric are intended to stay. As happenstance has it as well, I've also was looking at what's currently running on the Horsham Museum and Art Gallery's excellent Facebook page, because they're noting the return of the name of that excellent listed building pub to its original name. It's no longer the Olive Branch, it's gone back to being the Green Dragon, which I'm very excited about myself. But as I look at this, scrolling through the pages, it goes from being sort of a dirt track in the 1900s, or almost like that, to then a street with Morris Oxfords parked on it in the 1950s, and then some slightly less attractive railings put in the 1970s. But the reason I refer to this is that places change in accordance with the needs of the people and the times that we are in. And that's one of the things that I do think we need to take into account. The council carried out extensive consultation with residents in working up the proposals, and businesses and community stakeholders, and had drop-in centres, and got 840 survey responses. I appreciate that's less than there are petition responses on here, but I think one of the differences is when you were filling in the survey response, you were looking at all of the presentations and seeing all of the information and what the proposals were, and were asked quite detailed questions on what your views were. The majority of respondents, local businesses, community stakeholders, including the local business improvement district, supported the proposals to open up the bishopric to the area. And I think that business point is quite interesting, because whilst one of our council priorities is always listening and learning and improving, which I'll come to in a second if I don't run out of time, another one is building a thriving local economy. And the situation is, it's very difficult for the high street these days. We're quite fortunate in Horsham in that we still have a thriving high street. We'd like to keep it that way, and we need to keep that in mind as a priority when it comes to public realm improvements, as I think hopefully we'll come to in the debate. So 92% of respondents supported retaining the bishopric trees. We will be retaining the trees. 64% supported opening up the entrance from Albion Way, and significantly 82% supported opportunities to open up the central area where the birch trees are at the moment. We intend to relocate the birch trees, if possible, to Horsham Park to extend their life, but it's important to note that whilst it's been a great use of the former splash pond of the rising universe, this was always a temporary installation. It is not a long-term solution that can be retained. If kept in that position much longer, those birch trees will die. But there is planting suggested in the scheme that we look forward to. So returning to the priority here of always listening, learning, improving, I think that what we're doing tonight is very much in line with that. We've listened to the public in terms of raising this petition. I look forward to listening to everyone this evening and what they've got to say, learning from that exercise, and then hopefully bringing all of that together to improve the final proposals that go forward. And that, for that reason, my preference would be that we go with option B, which is to take account of the debate this evening. But I'm very much looking forward to hearing what members have got to say, and I'm very interested to see what they think we should do. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Don't know how that happened. Right, we now have 30 minutes to debate the petition. As mentioned earlier, members will be able to speak for 3 minutes, and I will ensure you keep to time. Does any member wish to speak? Councillor Noel.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a very brief thing to say. I'm not a frequent listener to Women's Hour, but happened to catch a snippet a few days ago about underused words. Now, this is not an insult, but the rarely used term in political discourse told us that politicians who are not truly representing the wishes of their residents are known as quokka-wodgers. That's spelled Quokkerwodger. As I said, it's not an insult, but it refers to people who don't represent the wishes of their residents. I'm afraid the Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure may well fall into that category. The current figure of over 1,700 signatures on the e-petition has asked this council to reconsider the removal of the stream, and that must be listened to. As the leader has already said, the Cabinet have a duty to listen, learn and improve. I don't see that this idea will improve the High Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noel. Do I have any other? Councillor Croker.
Thank you, Chair. Coming from the south of the district, I'm always a little bit hesitant to offer advice to Horsham Town. However, I shall stick my neck out. I understand the thrust of this petition in terms of wishing to retain some sort of watery feature. And I think that there is an argument for at least retaining the waterfall at the western end, albeit in working condition rather than not working condition. So at the moment, I'm hovering between option B or option A. And I'll see if any other members wish to comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Croker. Okay, we've heard from the deep south. Is anyone slightly more close to the problem wishing to speak? Councillor Vickers.
Chairman, very briefly, I'm all for improving the public realm, but I don't agree that this is the right way of going about it. I've got members of my family who cycle a lot through Horsham, and it's not necessary to put a cycle path through the bishopric, in my opinion, or in their opinion. I think there's a conflict between pedestrians and cyclists, so I would be supporting the recommendation A. I've read the petition, I've listened to the debate at scrutiny, and I think it's we should ask the Cabinet member to look again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vickers. Councillor Jeffreys.
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, just to pick up on a point that Councillor Vickers made just a moment ago, the petition as it currently stands isn't actually mentioning cycle lanes at all. It's focusing on the stream and the birch trees. So that's the scope of the petition that's in front of us at the moment. In terms of redevelopment more widely, I think we also have to keep in mind that there has been a consultation that has gone out at local businesses and the bid have also contributed to, who were largely supportive of this, citing economic reasons to expand their businesses and grow the local economy. So I just wanted to highlight that I don't think we should lose sight of that, there is according to the businesses by their own admission, part of that consultation, there is a business need for some kind of redevelopment, because the question is, if you don't redevelop it now, when will it be redeveloped, and at what point do you allow that area to come into such a state of disrepair that by that time the local, that's when you start to drive local businesses away. So we don't want to get to that point. So I just wanted to highlight and make it clear that businesses have widely supported this scheme, and that the cycle lane aspect isn't actually part of the realm of this petition. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Trott.
Yeah, as the local ward member, obviously I've received an awful lot of post bag on this one, and there are widely differing points of view coming in. But the thing that is quite noticeable is that a lot of them are just approaching one aspect of the argument, and therefore it is essential that whatever happens this evening, that we accurately communicate what's going on to the public once we've done it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hogben.
Thank you, Chairman. I hear what people are saying about the cycle lane, but I've got the drawing clearly in front of me, and the stream does look, to all intents and purposes, like it's being replaced by a cycle lane. And I don't see how we can differentiate the two. And most of my concerns, obviously I share the concerns of the public opinion. I agree with Councillor Knoll that we should be respecting the wishes of the public, and that we should take this into further consideration. Our town centre is a living room. It should feel calm, inclusive and safe, especially for people who make up the majority of visitors. Those on foot, not older residents and children, wheelchairs, people with visual impairments. National policy is clear that the government highway code places pedestrians at the top of the new hierarchy for road users. Cyclists are explicitly told to give way to pedestrians on shared routes at junctions. This reflects the simple truth that on foot we are most vulnerable. Design guidance backs this up. The Department for Transport's LTM 120, which I believe Councillor Fletcher always quotes to us, the manual for councils expected to follow, states that shared use should not be the default, and it is not suitable where pedestrian flows are high. I would class this area as a high pedestrian area. There's also the economic question. I think we all have a shared goal to boost the economy in Horsham town. It needs to be attractive, comfortable, and we need higher footfall and a strong retail performance. I am very worried about the cycle routes that we've got currently going through the plan on this route. I see the amount of e-bikes. Deliveroo is almost like a motorway at times with e-bikes speeding through the town centre. So to be clear, I want good cycling in Horsham, but we should provide direct access to cycle routes around the edges of Horsham with the pedestrian at the core, with excellent bike parking, clear wayfinding, but inside the pedestrian heart, walkers must come first where cycling would bring conflict. We should be required to dismount, and many successful town centres do, and we must work with the police and platforms to tackle illegal high-speed e-bikes. Tonight I'm asking to reaffirm pedestrian priority of the town centre and segregate any cycle routes rather than this mixed-use path. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bateman and Councillor Livingston.
Right, so I've got two queries. The first is, I'm a bit confused about why we're talking about cycling when the petition is about the stream, rocks and birch trees. I'm just a little bit asking for clarification on that. The second's also a query about clarification. One of the recommendations is, under B, is to say to take account of any comments raised during debate. Can you explain a little bit more about what that would look like if we took into account? Just want a bit more detail as to what that looks like when you take something to account.
Thanks, Councillor Bateman. I think regarding the cycle lanes point, it's already been indicated that the cycle lane element in Bishopprick of the proposals will not be taken forward. So I'm not entirely sure why Councillor Hogman's going on about it, because that's not actually going to be part of the proposals going forward. You know, maybe his recent joining of Reform has dulled his ability to tell fact from fiction. In terms of the actual taking into account of the responses, it's more of an indication of the fact that this is not kind of a binary thing in terms of petitions said do this, so yes, we'll do that. It's more a case of it needs to be weighed in the balance and taken into account all factors, because there are many factors to consider in determining what the best use of the scheme, but the best approach to the scheme is going forward, in addition to what's just in the petition. So obviously, we always need to sort of listen to different voices, different opinions in the community, and also different views of members this evening and what's actually debated. But that needs to be taken account of alongside the other factors when deciding going forward. I mean, I'm sorry if that's not a very, what's the word? Well, I won't use coherent, better than that, but clear approach, but there you go.
So I'm just checking that, you know, sometimes when people say they've listened to you and they've taken it into account, it doesn't necessarily mean that something's changed. Oops. It's just making sure that, you know, we really do respect and want to act on what the members of the public have said, and want to really make sure that the people who've submitted this can really see at the end that something has happened as a result of it, and that we really cared about what they've had to say. So I'm just checking that they will see something different in option B, if I was to vote for that, that made sure that they felt they've been taken seriously and we've paid heed to what they've said.
Well, I would say there might be something that's different as in accordance with what they've said, or if what they've asked for doesn't happen, we'll take account of what they've asked for, and then how that's been considered, and whether that's possible or whether it's not necessarily the best thing actually to do. I must admit, in my political life, I'm kind of it's always a slight frustration to me that it's often said, you haven't listened, or you've ignored this, or you've dismissed this, when actually what you've done is you've listened, you've considered it alongside other factors, and then you've chosen to go away. That doesn't mean you haven't listened or you've ignored it. Thanks.
Councillor Waters, did you want to respond on this particular point?
There are other people. I wanted to speak on this point, but there are other people that.
Oh, there are other speakers. Councillor Livingston, I saw next. Then I'll call you, and then Councillor Olsen.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a couple of points. First of all, it states that consultation has taken place with local businesses. Is that in the locality, in the bishopric, or does that include the area within Horsham town? What was the expanse of local businesses? That's my first question. The other thing is, I've lived in Horsham for 40 years, and I've seen these cycles of improvement and decay. We're in a decay period at the moment. If you stand outside, you'll see broken paving slabs, and that's because we haven't maintained them properly. Now, okay, we've got to have a regeneration, and we'll have new paving slabs and whatever, but we've got to have some continuity of maintaining them. And also, I need to understand about removing of this stream. What other impacts will it have? Is there a cost impact? How much is it going to cost to replace the equipment, the purification equipment, etc.? And will we be reducing any sort of health and safety implications, particularly to young children, that may occur if we keep the stream? Is it going to be safer, or will it be safer if we remove it? There's a number of points there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Livingston. I think in terms of this petition, there will be one of these motions put forward at the end. So it's likely that the Cabinet member will be asked to reconsider in one way or another. We're not here tonight to debate a decision that effectively has already been made, and the cost implications and all the other implications have already been considered. This petition is asking us to reconsider one particular aspect of a decision that's already there, and I think we should limit our debate to concerns about that. Councillor Wall.
Answer.
Answer his question. I don't think the question needs to be answered, because we're not here debating the costs. We're not here to debate the level that the local businesses were brought into the discussion. I think we're here to decide which of these four options we want to take forward, without doing a sort of full open heart surgery on the whole decision. Councillor Waters.
I'm going to bow to Councillor Ray because he had his hand up first.
That's all right, Chair.
Sorry.
That's all right. I just wanted to, first of all, say that the important thing about listening and respecting the views of our residents is to pay attention to the matter at hand, not to jump in with people's own personal political hobby horses. So today we're talking about a petition about the trees and the stream. So I think I'd like all the members here to bear that in mind. Other issues were irrelevant, and I think it's a shame those were brought in. I think the reason for the redesign is that it's a possible way of saving money for the council and for our residents going forward, and to increase footfall for businesses at a time when the high street is really struggling. So I just wanted to add those elements in there, and I think that's important as part of the discussion. It's clear to me that the spirit of it, I mean, it's good to focus on the words, but the spirit of it is, can we make this a more pleasant place for people to spend time? So although the discussions about removal of trees, I agree with our leader, Councillor Boffey, that there may be some confusion, that the nicer, more mature trees are remaining, and this plan adds new greenery, and that there's a way of respecting this, going ahead with plans and possibly increasing greenery, or as Councillor Croker said, maybe having a slightly different water feature which doesn't prevent footfall and isn't a huge expense for the council going forward and a burden going forward. So that's what I'd like to add, and I hope that's useful for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ravy. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to support the idea that we reconsider. I'm not going to say that we need to consider that whole thing. I personally was around when it was built. It has been a very favourite place for people to go, but I think it's become a little bit overgrown, a little bit tired. I certainly find that when I'm walking through that area, if I want to get to the pub, I find it's a barrier. And actually the shops which have moved out, I always found it was a barrier to get to them as well. So I would be in favour of opening up the space. But I would like to keep some of it. I like the water feature. But obviously there are issues around that, especially with the old one. And, you know, people will always have the need to put some bubbles in it. And I think that's a shame. So my view is asking for comments is that we kind of find some middle ground, that we don't lose all of it, but maybe keep some of it and use it as a better feature for the future, really. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Olsen.
Thank you, Chair. When I'm not at council on Wednesdays, I'm a volunteer Beaver Scouts leader on Wednesdays, and we recently took the beavers on a hike through Chesworth along the River Arun and ended in the Bishopric, so they could be rewarded with a nice gelato from a nearby shop. Now, I must confess, I haven't had many concerns for their health and safety on any trip, besides when we got to the Bishopric. Now, if you put a big pile of rocks in the middle of a public place, they're going to get climbed on, If you put a little stream through the middle of a public place, it's going to get played in. And all that is surrounded by hard concrete, not any sort of safe play surfacing. Personally, in this day and age, heightened health and safety and unfortunate growing litigation around liabilities, I have concerns that that feature is really no longer appropriate in its place. And while I can safely say no beavers were harmed on that trip, though there were a few wet shoes, I think the stream and the rocks have had their day and could be replaced, and the purpose of the space could be changed and opened up for other types of public activity, be it increased hospitality, etc. So I believe that, in conclusion, I think that the Cabinet member should take note of this debate, but I look forward to a new scheme which the local businesses are in support of, which will likely save the council or any future council maintenance costs. So I'll be supporting option B.
Thank you, Councillor Olsen. Councillor Utan.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to follow on from the point that Councillor Rabbie made about the fact that what I'm about to say is not political, not based on anything apart from the fact that I do feel that it is not true to say that Horsham is a green town. I do understand that there is a lot of debate about it, but I also feel that the trees and the stream are a valuable part, and I don't think that they should be demolished in any shape or form because they represent some form of hazard. I disagree with that entirely. I think they're a very well-known, very much admired, very much liked feature, which we should keep. So I'm fully in support of option A. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Utan.
Councillor Finnegan.
Sorry.
Councillor Finnegan.
Councillor Finnegan, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Although I do agree that that is a lovely oasis, I do believe it also has had its day a little bit. I've spoke deliberately to two businesses last week on the side where of the Green Dragon, and they are struggling to get the footfall because the boulders do prevent people from crossing over, and people seem to get in a channel and don't go over that side, so they are suffering from footfall, and we don't really want any more shops to close in Horsham. I do like the idea that Councillor Croker and others have raised about potentially retaining something such as the waterfall feature as a sort of a bit of a barrier from the dual carriageway, and wondered if that could be further explored. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Shorrock.
Thank you. Thank you. Just reading the petition, the wording is quite short. It just seems to me, from what I've heard, and maybe I'd ask for confirmation from the chair that, or an officer, that the alleged a harm or a change that would come from the stream's removal is actually not the case, because it seems that, for example, providing shade, well, that's given by the trees, and stemming the road noise, well, a little bit might come from the stream, you know, the sound of water, but I think it would probably mainly come from the trees as well. My understanding of the proposal as well, that there will be trees retained and some new ones planted. So just in terms of me being able to formulate my vote, could you confirm that to be the case?
Can I just defer to Councillor Boffey?
That's my understanding as well, but perhaps it might be helpful if the Director of Place commented on that.
Happy to do so. So yes, I can confirm that the trees, the existing trees that are there, will be retained. There'll be further planting. There'll be no cycle lane, as was mentioned, albeit that wasn't covered by the petition, and that the water feature is exactly the representations we've been received is exactly as Councillor Finnegan was reporting there, is that it does prevent people from walking on that northern side and visiting those businesses. So yeah, there was no intention to remove trees other than the temporary birch trees in the centre of the crossway between the Bishopric and West Street.
Thank you. I think.
Does that cover your point?
I think that's option A, but yes, thank you.
Councillor Emery.
Thank you, Chairman. Horsham is a very unique place, and with the changes that we're going to be debating later, the introduction of unitary authority will potentially put the uniqueness of Horsham at threat in the long term. And as we've seen from the survey results, that need for uniqueness is probably the major theme which came through from the initial consultation, and this further petition again demonstrates that the people of Horsham want to retain its uniqueness. However, Horsham has changed since the 1990s when this was developed. John Lewis has had a fundamental change to the footfall of Horsham. The footfall of Horsham used to be centred around Swan Walk and the Carfax. John Lewis in Horsham is the most successful John Lewis outside of London. It is incredibly successful as a business. That has caused a fundamental change in consumer behaviour and the need for safe walking between John Lewis and Swan Walk and the rest of town. Therefore, I can understand why the removal of the stream would widen that area and improve safety for the people. However, I do wish to see that uniqueness retained, and I'm very supportive of the idea of a fountain or something of that nature. And I would like that to be considered if formed part of option B. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bain.
Yes, I just wanted to address the issue of petitions and how much weight we should give to petitioners and numbers. And it just reminds me of the fact that trundling around the South Atlantic, there's a UK research ship called the Sir David Attenborough. Had the public had their complete way on that, it would have been called the RMS Boaty McBoatface. Now, there was, if you go on that research ship, you will find that they have a small tender, I think it's a little small submarine, and that is in fact called Boaty McBoatface. So it's a demonstration of the fact that you can take account of a petition, but still bring in some sense if it's not completely sensible, and have some sort of compromise going on. So that was just a sort of point about you know, the legal weight that we should put on a petition. Take account, but it's not legislation.
Thank you, Councillor. I think we're just about out of time, so I'm going to draw this debate to a close, and the Council must now decide how to respond to the petition, which you will recall I outlined the possible options earlier. Can I ask for a member to put forward a motion, firstly, that the petition has been debated, and secondly, specifying which action the Council should take? Councillor Trott.
Thanks, Chair. I would like to propose a motion that we adopt option B, to ask the Cabinet Member of Planning Infrastructure to take into account any comments raised during the debate when formulating the final scheme and proposals for the Bishop Brick.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Minto, do you wish to speak?
I think it's all been covered, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now put this to the vote. All those in favour of approving the motion proposed, please show. Against? One against, I can see. Abstentions? One abstention. Sorry, two. One. Double vision. Okay, that motion is clearly passed. Thank you. I was going to pause to let the crowds of public disperse, but seems to be a bit superfluous. So we now move on to the meat of the meeting, most people's opinion, the approval of submission of the business case and proposal for local government reorganisation in West Sussex. I'll call upon Councillor Martin Boffey to introduce this item.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, you know, how do you follow that? Just a small matter of local government reorganisation. Thank you very much to all the members who were at the joint scrutiny meeting yesterday evening, where we talked about this at length. So I apologise to some of you that some of the preamble to this may sound a little bit familiar. On the 5th of February 2025, the Minister of State for Local Government and English Devolution wrote to me and the leaders of the West Sussex councils to ask us to work together to develop a proposal for local government reorganisation. The Minister included in his letter the criteria and guidance issued by the Secretary of State to be used in developing the proposals. We were asked to submit an interim proposal, bearing in mind that that invitation was on the 5th of February, by the 21st of March, and a full proposal by the 26th of September 2025. Since February, as leaders, we have worked together to develop a proposal for local government reorganisation in West Sussex, meeting every fortnight and latterly every week to ensure we could put together the best proposal possible in the time available. From a long list of 14 options, we reduced this to 3 options by the time we went to public engagement in July. The first of these options, known as option, it's all options A, B, C and D again, so please, you know, delete your short-term memory because we're talking about all sorts of different things now. Option A was a unitary council covering the whole county area. The second option was a 2 unitary proposal known as option B, but this has 2 variations. Both 2 unitary proposals included Crawley, Horsham, Mid-Sussex in one unitary and Arran, Chichester and Worthing in the other. The variation comes from which council the Ada district is placed in. When Ada is included with Crawley, Horsham and Mid-Sussex, this is known as option B1. When Ada is included with Arran, Chichester and Worthing, this is known as option B2. The report before you introduces the business case. In the business case, all 3 options, and I must stress this, meet the government's criteria, including financial sustainability. With its mixture of financial and non-financial criteria, there is no obvious answer to the question, which is the best option? As the leaders of the West Sussex councils, we acknowledge we each choose options based on our views of what is best for our residents and best supports our council's priorities. The Cabinet report outlines how I believe the options match our council's priorities. After seeking the views of the leaders of the opposition groups, the chairs of the 2 policy and scrutiny committees, in addition to my political group and the Cabinet, I am the view the best option for Horsham District and its residents is option B2, where Horsham joins with Crawley and Mid-Sussex, and the Ada and Worthing councils, who have shared an officer team for many years, join with Arran and Chichester. There are a number of reasons, which, as I've said before, why I'm making this recommendation. Firstly, listening to the public and our staff and our stakeholders. 62% of the public, 55% of staff and 58% of stakeholders county-wide prefer 2 options. The Crawley, Horsham, Mid-Sussex area covers the southern portion of the Gatwick Diamond, of which Horsham District forms a part, and shares travel to work and housing market areas. This gives the best opportunity for economic growth for our district and the benefits economic growth gives to our communities. And those of us who, most of us in fact involved in considering strategic planning issues will be aware that for many years Horsham, Crawley and Mid Sussex have worked very closely together in view of that housing market area and shared evidence bases and such like. So this makes an awful lot of sense. Smaller councils, I believe, and let's be under no illusions, we're not talking about small councils here. 2 councils of over 400,000 will still be among the larger councils across this country as things stand at the moment, whereas actually a 900,000 council would be second only to Birmingham in terms of size in this country. But smaller councils, I should say, I believe, allow a more local focus on housing, social care, preventative actions, leisure and community support services. Having 2 councils in West Sussex means as well, and there's been some comment on this point in the news overnight, it would mean we would have, West Sussex would have 4 seats on the board of the new mayoral strategic authority for West Sussex, which better reflects the size of West Sussex's population compared to those of East Sussex and Brighton and Hove. Now, why do I say that? Why do I think that is important? Well, as things are currently structured, when you form a mayoral strategic authority, each member authority of that strategic authority has the same amount of representation, most likely 2 seats per authority. So if we were to go with option A, you would be looking at a proposal where Brighton and Hove City, with its less than 300,000 residents, would have 2 seats. East Sussex, with its 550,000 residents, would have 2 seats. West Sussex, with its 900,000 residents, would have 2 seats. I don't think that's right or fair. I don't think that makes sense. And I think for the voice of our residents in West Sussex, who represent basically 50% of that combined area, I think 2 councils giving 4 seats, half of the seats on that strategic authority, eminently makes more sense. Finally, a higher number of councillors in the 2 council model means better access to democracy for residents and a more manageable workload for councillors. I think I'll dwell on that one for a moment, and I'll actually quote positively something that Councillor Hogben often reminds us, that turkeys don't vote for Christmas. So we could be accused of being turkeys not wanting to vote for Christmas by supporting option B2. But I think there's a really important point here in terms of the people we serve, in that having, much as they might not always think it, having dramatically less elected representatives representing them is not going to be good for them. It is not going to help them access and make the most of the democratic process, get the best representation, secure improved services or better services, if the workload of the councillors who serve them is so much larger, and also reduces the scope of who the citizens are who are likely to be able to put themselves forward for that role. It will not be as representative a council if it is a council which is structured in such a way that the vast majority of the population could never stand for it. So that's probably enough from me now. I'm happy to take any questions that members have on the business case and its appendices and the Cabinet report. We also have obviously the Chief Executive and the Director of Resources here can help with any fine detail points. I would also note, as I said earlier, that last night the Finance and Performance Policy and Scrutiny Committee, together with the membership from Communities and Planning and Place Policy and Scrutiny Committee and other members, went through this matter in detail. Democratic Services have placed their notes of the meeting on the table for you this evening, and it's been appended to the Cabinet agenda because they couldn't be added to the report later. So I believe the chairman of the Communities in Place Policy and Scrutiny Committee is able to summarise the thoughts of those two committees. So with your permission, Chairman, I would suggest that Councillor Finnegan be allowed to do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Boffey. Yes, I was proposing to ask Councillor Finnegan to speak to the notes of the scrutiny committee that was held last night, and then I was going to call on the leaders of the two groups before I give everybody else an opportunity to speak. So that is an acceptable running order.
Thank you, Chairman. Please bear with me, it's quite long. Yes, as the leader said, we have feedback from the policy and scrutiny committees from last night. As the Finance and Performance Policy and Scrutiny Committee met yesterday to review and debate the Cabinet report on the approval of the submission of the business case and the proposal for local government reorganisation in West Sussex. They're joined by the members of the Communities in Place Policy and Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Bevis, Hogburn and Knoll were also in attendance and participated in the debate. The report was introduced by the Leader of the Council. The report was considered and the following points were raised by members. So under financial aspects, it was raised that there was no proof of cost savings. Local government reorganisation, LGR, could cost more despite the modelling. There are a lot of assumptions in the financial modelling, but it was accepted that this is a compromise between the 8 local authorities. Concerns were raised in relation to council tax harmonisation and the impact that this may have on residents. Observations were made in relation to the high cost of service delivery and technology costs in a 2-unitary authority model. There were concerns that the new authority may not have the money to make the required savings and deal with the costs of potential redundancies. Whilst the cost savings between option A and B2 looked to be around 30 million ongoing, there were many variables, and these figures should be considered in the broader context of the cost of the services, the total cost of the services. Transition. Questions were asked about how transition would work and whether this would be led by district or county council staff. It was noted that this would depend on which option was taken forward. Continuing authority status was also discussed. Housing. Members queried whether there would be any protection locally from housing targets. This was considered unlikely. Concerns were also raised regarding the debt from the housing services in other areas. Council services. Councillors were concerned about the impact on council services for local residents. Under the theme of councillors and democracy, it was noted that there would be a reduced number of councillors per person, and whilst there could be an increased stipend, the reduced number of councillors would result in a higher burden of work. It'd be harder to attract new councillors. There was a need to attract a wider demographic, and new arrangements may exclude many due to their personal circumstances, such as travel to meetings, jobs and caring responsibilities. There would also be an increased need for democratic services to support councillors due to their increased councillor caseload. Members commented on the community governance reviews and how they would be impacted by LGR. It was suggested that community governance reviews were probably best done by Horsham District Council rather than a bigger authority in the future. Impact of LGR on parish councils was considered, and it was asked what incentive there would be for them to continue with their work. Questions were asked about how they would be supported by councils and councillors in larger authorities. Locality boards were discussed, but guidance was not yet available. It was hoped that more locality-based working would assist. Members discussed the lack of clarity in relation to elections to county council seats and from some local district borough elections. It was considered that democracy was worth paying for and there was a higher risk of democratic deficit. Other comments that were raised. It was noted that 62% of survey respondents expressed a preference for a 2-unitary model, A suggestion was made that a degree of confidence could be added to that comment by saying what response we could expect if all 900,000 residents had responded to the survey. Councillor Ellis-Brown said that a 5% error should be added to the figures, making a range of response 57 to 67%. Some councillors would have liked to have more time for the backbenchers to consider the proposal in more detail. Members discussed Brighton's LGR proposal. Given that West Sussex had discounted the coastal strip option on the grounds of financial viability, members wondered why Brighton had put forward their proposals. The baseline for options in our report were outlined, along with comments about the importance of establishing safe baseline to ensure the financial viability of these options. Concerns were also raised about whether the governance may be predetermined on the Brighton proposal. At the conclusion of the debate, the key points were summarised to all members present, members of both policy and scrutiny committees and the guest councillors present. They confirmed that they were in agreement with the summary. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Finnegan. It's a very condensed summary of what went on last night. And I would like to thank Democratic Services for producing this at the end of the meeting last night and having it available for us now. I hope it gives members here a bit of guidance as to what the thinking was last night, and hopefully we won't have to cover every point again tonight. Councillor Noel, did you want to speak now?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm going to be very brief. I'm speaking on behalf of my group, and we have discussed this in group meetings for quite a long time now. And I really have to thank everyone from the CEO downwards, and particularly the leader, and all the officers who have been contributing to this debate over the last few months, because they really have worked hard. However, it's not just this district that's been working hard on it. Both counties and all the districts in Sussex have been working equally as hard. And all of them have come up with different solutions. So who is right and who is wrong? My group believe that no particular one is right, and that we're going to be given a decision by the government early next year. And the question is, has that decision already been made? We can't all be right and we can't all be wrong. So someone, one of the districts or one of the counties, is going to win out on this debate. So for that reason, my group feel that we're not going to recommend any course whatsoever, but sit back and watch to see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noel. Councillor Crowe, could you speak now?
Thank you, Chair. I'll try not to repeat anything that's been said so far, but it's going to be difficult. To start with, I went back to the original white paper last year that said unitarisation can cut wasteful duplication of bodies, reduce the number of councillors, and that's the bit I'd like to focus on, and reduce fragmentation of public services. I think realistically, the only one we can be confident about is reducing the number of councillors, and that I think is where the primary concern is, on certainly my primary concern. The report before us tonight hopefully points out that currently we have a combination of county and district councillors for Horsham district totalling 60. And that's either going to decrease to 17 with option A or 24 with option B. I think most of the members who have been on this council for a while will appreciate what that's going to do for the workloads of whoever gets elected to the unitaries. So from my point of view, we're looking at a least worst option here. And I think that comes out of B2 because I think it's important we support that to reflect the work that has been done by our officer team and the leader and etc. If I can put it that way. I don't think it's correct for us to stand back. So I will be supporting B2 when it comes to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crocus. Councillor Hogman.
Thank you, Chair. Turkeys don't vote for Christmas. I quite like that phrase. But it does come to the sort of continuing from Councillor Knowles' take on things. We most of us in the room have read the papers before us. 189 pages of information, and the conclusion at the end of it is that the financial stability is there or thereabouts. There's no one scheme that comes out a clear winner on cost savings. If it does, perhaps the Treasury will be minded to approve the single unitary model. And I sat there wondering about biases, political, non-political biases. I can understand why West Sussex County Council is recommending the single unitary authority, which is a different opinion to what this council has formed. And I wonder whether that's a political bias. We've seen Labour's submission, and again, I wonder whether there is anything politically driven behind that. But I reflected on it, and on speaking to several people, I've decided it's probably not political. It's about their teams and their people and their staff. It's about the fact that they work with good officers, good managers, good members of staff, and they're concerned about the well-being of their teams and the continuation. So, in the absence of an outright clear winner, people are concerned about that, and that does create a bias. I find myself agreeing with Councillor Boffey and much of what he said last night in terms of one unitary authority will be a mammoth beast. I agree with Councillor Croker that there is a need for more representation, and that probably clears me to steer along with the Cabinet. Perhaps the Chairman could clarify tonight. I didn't think we were making a vote or a decision. I thought that was down to Cabinet, and we're merely having a debate tonight, but perhaps the Chairman can clarify that in a second. So I find myself agreeing with the leader. The financial differences are so small that cost alone should not drive the decision. Representation matters, and the single unitary authority risk undermining it. The consultation response, in which the staff and public opinion is very clear, it has the highest, and the single unitary authority, it wasn't sort of 62-38, it was only 23, I think, % or in the 20s for the single unitary. So a final plea from me is that relates to the workload of councillors and remuneration. Unitary authority councillors themselves typically work 20 to 25 hours a week as a backbench councillor. The papers that I've read are suggesting a 25% uplift on the council allowance as well. I think that would exclude large parts of the community from standing, fail to attract the councillors from diversity needed, and it's insufficient. If we're serious about good representation, remuneration must be set at a realistic and fair level. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Have any other? Sorry, Councillor Manton.
Thank you, Chairman. I guess that I probably need to declare an interest here. I should have probably declared it earlier. I apologise. Having been recently elected to a parish council, although I have not yet taken up my seat, I'm looking at the impact of LGR on parish councils. And I believe we were originally told by Jim McMahon and Angela Rayner that this local government reorganisation would result in more devolved powers to both the unitary and to parishes. And I've yet to discover what powers are likely to be devolved to parishes. So at this stage, I'm afraid that I will have to abstain from this because I'm unaware of what's coming down the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Raby.
I just wanted to add a very brief point about the relationship of councils to the voluntary sector and other organisations, because that's the real heart of our district, and that's what we know about best, is the number of beavers and scouts and voluntary groups that work in the environment or run football teams or run hockey teams. And all of these things go on. If they all just shut up shop overnight, our district would be so much poorer. And it's not necessarily about the money, although if you added up the value that they give to the community, it's absolutely huge. I just want to give one very brief example. So I went with the community team and I was able to sit in a room with a huge number of voluntary sector groups supporting vulnerable people in the district, people with Alzheimer's, people with drug and alcohol problems. And they were all able to support each other. And I thought, this is absolutely fantastic. This is just amazing to be able to sit amongst all these people. And I thought that was where I had the sort of main thought. If these people all stopped, how much worse would it be for people with dementia, with people with a whole range of needs? And they're making sure people have the money that they need, getting through the cost of living crisis. So it's not necessarily about the finances of the council, but how well the council leads and supports. And often it's really good value for money being a catalyst. And I just really worry about how that would be delivered on a larger scale, whether you would lose some of that sense of place and interrelatedness between organisations and between the council leading. And I think I could imagine, that you might be able to share and expand that to Crawley or to Mid Sussex. But the idea that you could get that same essence on a larger scale, I just think it would be so hard because the difference between the coastal strip and where we are here. So I think maybe people in Bognor and Worthing may have relationships, and Littlehampton, and in the council meeting yesterday, the county council meeting, somebody did say that I've got a real, I care about my patch, and they started talking about the south coast. And I'm sure a lot of people here have family, children, and you work across places, and actually we've got a much more of a pull, and we know about the sort of the northeast, whether that's visiting Tilgate Park with my kids, etc., going to school backwards and forwards. And the decision isn't going to be ours, as Councillor Knoll says, it's going to be made far away. And I just hope that if we get the larger model, that we find a way of trying to save what's special about our district and what's can be special about a smaller authority. At 400,000 in the smaller option, it would still be bigger than any single London borough. So the smaller option is still big. But yeah, I'm open to hear what everybody else has to say, but I just wanted to share that from a community perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry. I couldn't see which hand went up first. Councillor Franklin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Bayman, for giving me the first go at this. It's possible Councillor Hogman was referring to this, and I've been listening to people talking about, councillors talking about the impact on councillors and councillors' work through this process and in the outcome. I think that we should take a moment, though, to recognise how much of an impact this has on officers and all workers in this council, HTC, and all councils. It will be a massive impact, and depending on which way the decisions go, will cause a fair amount of concern amongst officers who are working for us. And I think we will have a duty to do our best to maintain business continuity, if I can call it that, throughout the whole of this process, and make sure that we support all the people that actually do all the work. I'd also like to recognise the point that Councillor Manton made, that this could have a very significant impact on parish councils. I'm an optimist generally, and I can see it could be a huge opportunity for parish councils, given the right circumstances and support. There's an opportunity for parish councillors to step up and take on slightly bigger roles than they maybe currently have. And I think that, again, as we go through this process, we as a council, district council, should look to see what support we can give to those parish councils and neighbourhood councils throughout the next couple of years, 3 years, whatever it is.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Bayman.
I think it'd be true to say that nobody in this room lobbied the government to bring in local government reorganisation. It did not appear in the Labour Party manifesto, so nobody voted for it either. So we kind of had a choice when it rather surprisingly emerged out of the MHCLG. Do we cooperate with the process and look for the best option? Or do we put our head in the sand, build a brick wall around Horsham district and declare UDI? To me, I mean, it seems you often don't get what you really want. You often don't get the opportunities to choose between options that you really want. However, I think, as Councillor Croker said, in many cases we're talking about what is the least bad option or something that's coming our way and that we don't really have any option to stop. And if you look around, I mean, the work that I've been quite involved, not as much as Martin has, but certainly to quite a level, in going through these options, in working with our local neighbouring councils. And there's no doubt that B2 is the one that carries the most favour of the most people who are in the room. And it's also an important factor to note that all the people stayed in the room throughout the process, which is certainly not the case that's happened in other parts of the country. There's been a pretty robust, in terms of data, business case setting out the criteria and what various options mean. But it's clear to me, for a lot of reasons, that B2 is the best one. You might have expected me to sort of focus on the financials, given my cabinet role, but in fact the financials are not that dissimilar for any of those options. And it's a matter of conjecture whether savings will actually be achieved. The margin for error, when you're talking about 3% of a budget over years coming up, is too much to put a lot of faith in, frankly. So we could be saving a bit, we could be losing a bit. I really don't know. But I think I've got to say I'm disappointed with Councillor Knowles' position or the position of his group on this, because if you have options in front of you and you don't favour one, when something happens and a decision is currently made, then you have less grounds to complain about what's happened. And I think it would be favourable if this council could have had a more consensus view on what was the best option, on what was saying was the best option, when clearly there is a best option. However, that's the decision of his group. Whether it's affected by the political position in West Sussex, I don't know, but it could be. So I would just like to end by saying, clearly I am very much in support of our submission for B2, and I thank the views of the leader of the Greens for expressing a similar kind of opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Olsen.
Thank you, Chair. First, I also want to thank everyone who's worked tirelessly on this documentation and the background and the reporting to get to some sort of recommendation from this council. I'm not very familiar with the sit back and watch approach myself. It's not one approach I tend to favour. I believe we are elected not only to represent but to influence others, and I suggest what's best for our residents, be it at Horsham district level, pushing to county, even sometimes this council makes recommendations to national government through motions, etc. All the parties here have done that in the past. So voting on this proposal rather than abstaining means a lot to me, because I think it's the only way I'm really going to get to have a say in this process and the future of our district. So while the modelling now may try to sort of level the playing field financially and say that there's not that much variation between these options, I'm also thinking of something that we talk about a lot lately, which is about trust in governance. Now, I think our residents have a lot of trust in Horsham District Council, and I think it's a shame that this council's time is now limited. But I think they have less trust in West Sussex County Council. And I think that actually this provides an opportunity to rather adopt what will be perceived potentially as one or the other, but something new, a new geography to sort of reset the clock maybe, and to increase opportunity for there to be greater trust in governance with something new. So I definitely support a 2 unitary option for West Sussex, option 2B to be precise, or what is being proposed in this recommendation. And I hope that ultimately this will lead to better outcomes for all of our residents, not just in whatever our unitary is, but actually for the unitaries across all of this county. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Blackman.
Thank you, Chairman. I think this business case that we have here is a tremendous piece of work, and I echo all the compliments to everyone involved for the collaborative efforts. We all have grave concerns, as we've all heard in Councillor Finnegan's summary. I certainly do. I'd like to thank Councillor Croker. I do agree with his thoughts. The case made here for B2 answers all of the government's imperatives, but also crucially includes the expert awareness of where the challenges will lie and answers these, such as strengthening community leadership to mitigate the risks of reduced local influence. And it also looks for the opportunity in the proposal, as it should, and it finds and states it. For example, fostering local partnerships, attracting more investment, better representation and input to help the mayoral strategic authority. And for that reason, I support B2. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher.
I'm not entirely sure that I've formulated what I want to say, so excuse me if it's a little bit rambling. But there's kind of something else that I wanted to bring to this debate, which is interesting, and it's good that we can all hear what everybody says. I'm really concerned for our residents and our communities in the middle of this, who essentially are really confused by what's going on. I've been speaking to so many people, who just don't really understand it. I know we don't understand it, and they understand it even less. And I can also see relationships across the area breaking down with suspicion and accusations of land grabbing, suggesting that one area should have less influence than another. And I find that very concerning. So I'd really hope that whatever model is selected, and we know that we can put forward what we think, but it will be the government that chooses, that we kind of resolve together to use this as an opportunity to get the best outcome for all of Sussex, and that we do all we can to see it, no matter how annoying or confusing the process is, as an opportunity to unite across the whole of Sussex, not just west, not just east, not just Brighton and Hove, with a view to bringing better well-being to all of our communities, to all of our residents, and greater protection for our environment. And I just think if we can just take a bigger picture and see that whatever we get, we've got to do our best going forwards for the whole picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Potts.
Thank you, Chairman. It won't surprise this council that I do agree with my colleague, Councillor Knoll, to a degree anyway. I also agree with much that's been said by colleagues across this council. This consultation risks being nothing more than theatre. We are asked to pour in time, resources and pages of evidence when in truth this Labour government will already have settled on its preferred model for Sussex. We have seen this play before, central diktat dressed up as local choice. That matters because our residents deserve honesty. If decisions are being made in Whitehall, let's not pretend they are being shaped here in Horsham. But it is still better that we put forward a clear case to government, and that is the current recommendation of option B2, and it ensures our residents' interests are at least on record. That is similar to my Councillor Bainham has already stated. And I also want to thank our council officers for the huge amount of work and evidence they have provided to support us through this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry? Councillor Mercer.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'd want to echo Councillor Potts' thanks to officers, because one has seen how many hours they've had to put into this over and atop
on top of the normal workload, which is always big anyway. I'm probably one of the most unpopular people in the room because having worked and been elected at various points to a variety of different councils, from very large counties to small districts and small unitaries and London boroughs, I've long had the view that unitary councils are much more in touch with local matters and much more in touch with their residents than big counties are. And therefore, you know, this progress for me is something that I hope will work out the way it's intended. So I'll make myself unpopular with that. And I've had some personal experience of it. I went to the new unitary of West Berkshire, which had a population of 120,000, as the Director of Education and Skills there. When I was in Dorset, I was the Director of Education and Skills there when it went through unitarisation, and essentially one of the Dorset districts, Christchurch, moved to Bournemouth and Poole, who were amalgamating, and the rump of the county continued as a unitary. And that rump of the county was 390,000 population, which is relevant. I've heard a lot over various different situations, including yesterday, about the different savings that might be possible with the different models. And of course, whilst the figures in the business case are constructed, and I'm not looking at Don here, but they're constructed as best one can with the figures that are available from all the different councils. At the end of the day, they are a projection and a construct. They are not reality. And therefore, what will happen in the future, in my view, will depend on how successful the councillors are and the officers are of the new authority or authorities in taking that change and driving it forward. There was a lot of discussion of economies of scale in relation to the big unitary. Well, what there hasn't been is discussion about the costs of diseconomies of scale. And diseconomies of scale are about things like having to moderate quality across a very large geographic area, like multiple delivery points, all of which have to have some sort of management arrangements, like varied managerial quality in different sections of large organisations, or deeper hierarchies, which cause delay and blockage to communications, greater bureaucracy because of the desire to be absolutely perfect in one's organisational approach. We've also heard a lot about in relation to that sort of economies of scale thing, about potential costs and risks of disaggregation of services, in particular what the county would call the big services such as adults, social care, children's social care and special needs, and also highways. Well, again, I thought, well, the best I can do in forming my view about this was to do my research in the services that I knew best. So thinking back on the county's children's services, it has been not a particularly good record. Not very long ago, they were in a potential intervention by central government because they were simply not good enough. They worked very hard at improving, and the most recent Ofsted of their children's services suggested that they were now good, which is the second level of quality. I then went and looked at some small unitary stroke multi-purpose councils and how they were doing. And in particular, I pulled out the Ofsted reports of children's services for Kingston upon Thames, population 170,454, Richmond upon Thames, population 195,513, and Brighton and Hove, population 279,637. all of them, in terms of this debate, much smaller than the 430,000 or odd of the smaller proposed unitary. And all of them are outstanding. So that influenced me quite strongly. And whilst I would want to say everybody will come at this based on their own knowledge and their own expertise, but I do hope that everybody will seek to express their opinion in the way that they think will produce the best results for residents and young people in this area.
Thank you, Councillor. You seem to have run out of discussion points, which is in a way encouraging. So we've now debated this matter, and I remind you that the final decision on this and the recommendation that will go from this council back to government will be made by the Cabinet, but it would be helpful to have an indicative, non-binding vote on which option members prefer. And it has already been put forward that option B2 is the option preferred by Cabinet, although they haven't made a final decision yet. So I would like to take a vote on those in favour of supporting option B2, please. Okay. Against? Abstentions? Thank you. Well, that's clearly carried, so our preferred position is option B2, and I hope that the Cabinet will take note of that in their discussions, which will be starting in a few minutes. Thank you for your time on that. We do have some other items on the agenda. Reports of representatives. No, good. Oh, sorry. Councillor Emery talking about Gatwick.
Gatcom, thank you, Chairman. Just to advise members that a written report was issued to you all a couple of hours ago. If you have any questions on that, please raise them with me directly or with Julia. Thank you.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of movement on that, and I imagine that Councillor Emery might well be bringing another report next time and the time after that, and probably thereafter. There are no notices of question from members, and there's no urgent business, so I would now declare the meeting closed. And if you're not staying for the Cabinet meeting, if you could vacate the chamber as quickly as possible, and we'll have a 10-minute break before the next business. Thank you.